The following program is being brought to you by Reign of Fire Radio, a media outreach arm of Reign of Fire Evangelical Ministries. Our commitment is to sponsor programs that will assist in living a Christian life and win others through teaching the finished work of Jesus Christ.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Reign of Fire Christian Radio. I'm your host, Rand Burke, and on every broadcast, I like to set the stage sharing one of the foundation scriptures of our ministry, Reign of Fire Evangelical Ministries, as well as our outreach arm, Reign of Fire Christian Radio. On Luke 4:17 through 19, it states, "And Jesus was handed the book of the prophet Isaiah. When he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, 'The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed.' Christ is the message, and I'm only the bearer of the message." And our topic tonight is sibling rivalry. I think I said that word right. Mouthful for me. When I was growing up, I was kind of an only child until my brother came along 10 years after me. So we weren't really all that close. Sometimes he'd agitate me, and it was funny because my mother was the firstborn in the family, and my father was the baby of the family, so there was an interesting dynamic there. My mother could empathize with what I was going through, and my father would empathize with what my brother was going through. However, when he was 10, I was 20 and I was out of the house. So we didn't really have all that much interaction in order to have any type of sibling rivalry, of any type of agitation, though there was a little, but certainly not as much as what there could have been. Conversely, I have twin grandsons. They're cute, named Andrew and Aaron. One looks like a surfer dude, and the other one looks like an Italian stallion. They're completely different as looks, but the interesting thing is how they interact with each other. They have their little tiffs with each other, but by and large, one will stand up for the other one will assist the other one in a situation, one will cover for the other in a situation. So it's pretty neat. What I never want you to forget in this story, that he's made us all one in Christ. Brother and sisters can be the strongest bond in the world. Solomon states in Proverbs 17:17, "A friend is always loyal, and a brother is born to help in the time of need." The problem is, they can also be the greatest heartache and cause the greatest divisions. A few combos, so to speak, that you'd like to see, that I'm talking about in the Bible is, let's start with Cain and Abel. Probably one of the most deadliest brother combinations in the world, because Cain killed Abel, and Abel was banished away from God, and another brother came by, Seth, and he replaced Abel, and he was basically the lineage from where we came from. Esau and Jacob, another interesting pair. Abraham was told by God that he'd have a son, and this happened at like 75 years old. When he was older, like 15 years later, he said, something, this just isn't working out. Sarah gave her handmaid Haggai to Abraham, and this was the custom of the day for Abraham, for the man to bear a child, and she did, and called his name Ishmael. Well, Sarah, finding out that wasn't Abraham's problem, that she couldn't get pregnant, was kind of upset with Haggai, and basically Haggai was, pushed aside by Sarah. But she hung around, so to speak, and then Isaac was born. So another type of rivalry between relatives. Then you have Esau and Jacob, out of the lineage of Isaac. Now, God had prophesied that the older would serve the younger, and it happened that Esau basically sold his birthright for a bowl of beans because he was hungry. That birthright didn't mean much to him. Also, he married somebody outside of the lineage of Abraham, and then, this upset Isaac and Rachel, the mother. And so Jacob, he was wanting the blessing because Isaac was getting up in age and he couldn't see very well. Well, basically what Jacob did was snatch the blessing away from Esau. So not only did he have the birthright, but he also had the better of the blessings. Well, he took off and he went to Laban, his uncle, and there was a woman that he loved dearly. He was just enamored with her, and that was Rachel. Rebecca was Isaac's wife. Rachel was one of the wives of Jacob. But the thing was, he said to Laban, hey, you know something? I want to really want to marry your daughter, really love her. And he said, okay, stick around for 7 years and work for me and you'll get Rachel. Well, he sticks around for 7 years, goes into the tent, must be really dark, comes out, finds out it's her sister Leah. And he's incensed. He goes to Laban and says, hey, what'd you do to me? What's going on? And Laban said, well, I couldn't very well give Leah away because she's the older daughter. So I tell you what you can do. You stick around for another 7 years and Rachel will be your wife. So that happened. Now there's a rivalry between having children. So this rivalry ends up with there's 10 children born to Leah, her handmaid, Rachel, her handmaid, but finally there was a child born to Rachel. Name was Joseph, and the other brother that was with that is Rachel, Benjamin. So here we go. Jacob goes back to the land that was promised by Abraham. Sees Esau, was concerned that Esau was going to take him off the earth, but Esau said, hey, all's good, everything's forgiven, let's rock this thing. So Jacob's in the land, and Joseph is kind of has a tude with his other brothers, and he's prophetic, and he sees these visions. Instead of keeping them to himself, he said, hey, you know what, bros, I see this vision. I am the main cornstalk. Whatever those things you do bind together of wheat or of corn, and you guys are bowing down to me. Well, didn't go too well with the brothers. He was out. Jacob sent him out to see how his brothers were doing, and he had this coat of many colors that was sewn to Joseph because this was his firstborn of Rachel, whom he loved. So Joseph had a special place in his heart. Well, these guys threw him in a pit, was going to kill him. There's these traders coming by to sell him as a slave, and he goes down to Egypt. Not the best of brotherly love between these two, right? Well, ends up that Joseph becomes the second command in Egypt, and saves his brothers. All's well that ends well, right? Well, so we have a conflict between Cain and Abel. We have one between Esau and Jacob. Now we have the one from Rachel and Leah. Now we got Joseph and the brothers. Well, let's talk about another one. But these two worked well together for a while, and this was Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. So Miriam puts Moses in a basket, and he's floating down. The Pharaoh's daughter finds him, wants to keep him as her own. Now the mother's nurses her own son. Aaron's there, who is older than Moses as well as Miriam. So Moses takes out an Egyptian, is afraid that he's going to be told on by one of the Jewish slaves, takes off for 40 years. So he was 40 years old when this happened. He spends 40 years in the desert, and then God says, hey, you know something? I need you to lead the people out of Egypt. So we all know the stories of the plights of the bugs, the death of the firstborn, and finally Pharaoh says, get out of this place. I don't need you here. All you're doing is destruction. So they take off. Well, we know that Pharaoh follows them. They get trashed. And now the children of Israel are wandering around Egypt. Now, one of the things that happened during this is there was a sense of jealousy that rose up between Aaron and Miriam and Moses. This didn't go over very well with Moses. It certainly didn't go over well with God. And Moses says, okay, let's separate ourselves one from another and let God choose. Well, God chose Moses. Aaron repented. Miriam repented, although Miriam was hit with leprosy for a number of days, and then she was healed. So now you got that going on. Another one, in more coming towards Jesus, was Martha and Mary. Martha was doing all this work. Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus. Martha said, hey, Lord, you know something? I'm sweating my brows off here. I'm just dripping with sweat, doing all these things. And Mary's just hanging. She's not doing anything. Jesus said, okay, you're doing a great thing, but Mary's chosen the greater thing, which was sitting at the feet of Jesus. Now, let's talk about even the apostles. We know that the apostles, there were brothers in the apostles. We got James and John. We have the other brothers. I can't think of them offhand. But we got all these brothers, and at a point, they were trying to figure out who was going to be greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So here's these brothers fighting with one another, saying, okay, I'm going to be great. I'm going to be great. Jesus said, guess what? Puts a child in the midst and says, if you become like this kid, then you'll become great in heaven. They had to humble themselves and have that childlike faith. So, another of the brothers, and we can talk about them as spiritual brothers, is Paul and Barnabas, where they had a split, they had a division, they went their separate ways. You could say the same about Peter and Paul. When Peter went to Galatians, they had a spat there where Paul called Peter out about what was going on with the Galatian Jews. The point of this is that a house divided cannot stand. Jesus makes that very specific in the Gospels of Matthew as well as Luke, but he very clearly talks about it in Matthew. That, the leaders were saying, well, he's doing this by the power of Satan. And Jesus said, hey, guess what? You guys, can't happen because Satan won't be divided against Satan.